So Cecilia has letters A, B, E, H, N, N, T.
She could play bathe, but that B-A-T-H-E, that keeps 2 N's, which isn't amazing.
So I might even go short here. I might play Nab even. I know that's not on the list there, but Nab is definitely a play where EHNT has a lot of synergy, and it sets up an E hook. Nab takes Nabe as back hook, and it doesn't allow your opponent to score much the next turn. So I might actually diverge a bit from where Quackle is suggesting plays and go short, but it looks like Cecilia is going to go long here, and I think it's really just a stylistic preference for those.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it looks like she's going to play bathe. It's not ideal because of the 2 N's, but it does score very well, and it doesn't give much back. So I was saying how keeping the 2 N's is unideal. Can you guys see? She drew 2 more N's, which is just absolutely horrendous.
Yeah, and it looks
might have
like
to exchange tiles next turn.
And it looks like Eric is now considering those back hooks to bathe, which made it a bit risky of a play, like bathed, although he takes it back. These are definitely tiles that are close to a bingo and score a bit, so you can go a lot of different directions here to figure out how much you want to score, what sort of letters you want to keep. He decides to kind of unload the most hefty of those tiles to play crumb, keeping ADT. Josh, would that be the direction you'd try to go in, or would you go
I like
a different
that play.
direction?
I like that play a lot. I was just looking up to see if crumb cake was a word, and unfortunately isn't. Yeah, crumb is a decent option. It's not committing to anything specific. He's just balancing the letters on his rack, and he's scoring pretty well. Cut is an interesting option, but the thing about cut and bathed is that it creates an S hook for scud. That since the C is placed there and there are no 2-letter words with the C, makes it very hard for Eric to maybe block that spot if he continues to score more than Cecilia. It's just something to consider all the time, like just hooks on words.
Yeah, so Cecilia exchanged. Eric is now considering weighty. He could also play Adita and Crummy, but it looks like he goes for weighty. Both seem like pretty good plays there as options.
Yeah, I would play weighty to keep sunbathed alive.
Fair enough.
Yeah, ADYTA, that's the plural of aditum, just a Latin-based word. We have all sorts of languages in our English language. But I think weighty is the proper option here.
Yeah, and so Cecilia has a lot of different bingo options here. She'll likely see the 7s. It's a pretty common rack. And it looks like the 8s don't score as much either, so she'll probably go the route.
Was just blocked, I'd like to mention. She could have played Retainer.
That's true, as a double-double, yeah. And
just,
a double-double...
letting you know, Morris, your play would have been disastrous. Like Retainer would have been a lot better.
Fair enough. Well, luckily, I'm not a Cecilia whisperer or an Eric whisperer, and they're making much better plays than me. So... it looks like she has Trainee down. She's considering maybe the board position of it and such before she submits. I think that, she takes it back. I mean, Josh, would you be considering any other bingos here for fewer points, or would you play Trainee?
Well, what I would be is I would be looking for bingos. That's just my MO. But after a lot of looking, I think I would play Trainee.
So maybe Cecilia's a lot of looking is condensed in like those 20 seconds that we saw her pick up Trainee. But she plays the word, looks like a good play. And Eric is now close to a lot of bingos. If she maybe played one of those 8-letter words with an E out in a space, it would have been a bit more disastrous because he would have had sextains, but yeah, that's not an option here.
Yep. So now he has the X again. He just had it last game. We'll see if he'll be able to. Oh, he's looking for. So So I've seen him do this before. Since all the words are checked beforehand, you can just try certain words. You know that there's one word that isn't a word, like XS is what he tried. He just wants to see if there's actually a hook there. So he's just trying it out in Scrum. Unfortunately, it's not a word. He's trying again. He's trying taxes. This is the sort of thing that Eric does that for me, like the pride of being like live streamed and like playing these weird words would probably prevent me from playing a valid word because I'm worried it's not a real word. But Eric has no shame, and that's all for the better.
Yeah, as we said before, Eric is a strategist. He plays a lot of games, and he really tries to kind of milk the extra 1-2% chance that gives you a victory. He'll go for that, and it's a really admirable quality for a Scrabble player. And
I'm seeing in the chat, taxist was suggested, and people are saying it should be a word. It should be, as Chris Schneider says, someone who hates accountants. That's a very clever idea. Maybe it'll be in the next update. Who knows?
Yeah, interesting.
So he has the S in the end. Sorry, he has the S in the end for sunbathe. So see if he notices that. And sometimes there's something called fishing in Scrabble that people do. It's just going for specific plays. Usually it's going for a bingo. He could potentially play off a lot of other tiles in the S in the end just for that nice chance at the 45-point play, but it's really not worth it. It's just a fun little tidbit.
Yeah, and so one play he put down briefly and then picked back up would actually block sunbathe. It would be XIS and crumbs, possibly to set up axis as a possibility, I think. The problem there is it's also really dangerous if your opponent has an A.
Yeah,
he can't really infer anything about Cecilia's rack, given that she picked up 7 new tiles there. So he might not be that much of a risk taker. He could maybe play something like... Yeah, he could maybe do another option like ticks, or if he wants to be gutsy, tax off of the T in bathe. So
I kind of like tax. I mean, there's already a lot of openings on this board, specifically the T and trainee. So most of the plays Cecilia is going to make will probably play through the T and trainee because that's just the human spot to play in with most racks. So because of that, playing tax and setting up the I for taxi and even the A for taxa might be a gambit worth taking here.
Yeah, well, he's considering doing the XIS spot, which is pretty cool, pretty gutsy. I mean,
yeah, he does it.
Cecilia tried to address it, but you're right. There's now basically 2 triple word scores open, so he just made the board a lot more volatile. And when you're down,
you can see Cecilia's eyebrows raised, like, wow, that's gutsy. She can see it as well.
Yeah, I mean, Cecilia has to be thinking Eric was holding an S there, most likely, just because ticks
an A,
is around the same amount of points as XIS. So she has to be thinking Eric's holding an S.
Oh, you think an S? Okay, yeah, definitely an S and probably an A. Not sure what use it is to her in this position to actually have this inference, this what we call a rack inference. But it's very important to look at your opponent's plays. I do a lot of that, probably too much of that in my games. But these players probably do just enough of that. So she probably is like, oh yeah, he probably has an A, probably has an S, but not much I can do except just keep on keeping on. And she just drew 2 A's, so Eric's gonna have to address that spot, I think, this turn.
Yeah, well, the one thing knowing both the A and the S does is the S is a good tile with the T hanging out with trainee, and the A would have been a good tile in front of XIS. So she might have just thought, I can't block both spots. It's pretty likely he could hit either. Just make my best play.
Ooh, okay. So it looks like Eric's just missed a really good play of Stannery through the R and trainee. That would have been a bingo. That would have been, I think, 63 points, was it? That would have propelled him right back into the game. Natty is really not that bad. It still keeps the A for access, but you're going to see that Cecilia is not going to let him fool her twice. And I think that was a big miss for Eric. It might be pivotal in this game.
Yeah, and so one thing to start noticing is the S is normally a really valuable tile. AE does not take an S, and I actually forget if knife takes an S. I am always bad with these F to VES words. Is knife's a word?
Yeah, it actually takes the D, the R, and the S.
It takes all of them. Okay, so maybe the S isn't quite as bad as I initially thought at first glance, but
I worry the other way. I'm always like, is knived a word? Kniving? But no, those are not words.
So So, but the S might be less valuable than normal, especially because most bingos with S's them are not necessarily those, but a lot end in the S, and there isn't really any spot aside from the spot Cecilia just created with Homa for those kinds of words to happen.
Exactly. And oh my god, I'm looking at Cecilia's rack. If she's able to play Vivaria, I think that's a word, yeah. Vivaria and NA, that would be humongous. And we'll see if Eric's able to block that spot. I don't think he will.
Yeah,
He
it's
has a
not
nice
an
rack.
obvious spot. And he doesn't really have the tiles to do it either. So what do you do with Eric here? Do you use the knife took here and just make a play for a bit of points and keep like Ged GED?
Yeah, in this position, I'd be taking it hard to think. I'd be making a play I think is a good play. Then Cecilia comes down with Vivaria, and I'm like, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? That's what I would be thinking. But yeah, I think what he's trying to do is keep scoring because he is down 60 points. He needs to keep scoring because even if he plays a bingo for 70, 80 points, it's Cecilia's turn. She's going to be able to score back, and she'll still be in the lead. So if he can't find bingo, which I don't think he has here, he's gonna have to score somehow. So GED and knifed seems okay. The board isn't super wide open. I mean that big spot was both of the big spots on the board, the triple words were just taken. But in terms of space, once you play GED or GAD and knifed, there's not a ton of options for the rest of the game. There's still a lot of game to go, but that hook for knife is actually a very good spot to score, but also an even better spot to bingo.
Yeah, that's a good point. So he might even go below the F in knife, making something like Fed if he wants to keep that lane open. He'd get rid of the D as a hook for knife, but he could maybe go that option instead if he wants to keep the hook open and even open up another hook.
Yeah, and we see a suggestion of Fed. I'm not a fan of the G tile, but I probably would play Fed here because the G and the N is actually pretty good together. But normally the G, people are looking for ing words, and that's about it. Yeah, I think I would play Fed with the F and knife. See what he does though, and his time is starting to get a bit low. He still has over 10 minutes, but
yeah. So just a reminder that these clocks were set to 20 minutes in tournaments. They're set to 25 minutes. So he's only used a bit. He's used about half his time with about half the game left. So he's kind of pacing himself perfectly if he wanted to use the same amount of time on every turn. The one thing to monitor is, and it looks like she's going to get Vivaria. The one thing to monitor is whether he needs more time towards the end of the game if the situation gets complex. So I often like to have a lot of time at the end of the game just because I know situations can get out of hand and I really need to think in those turns. But Eric might be able to pace himself better than me.
Yeah, and this is really bad for Eric. As I was saying, he's probably like lots of thoughts going through his head of like, is she just getting really lucky, or am I doing something wrong? And that I think if he ever looks back at this game, as us top players so often do, and he sees that he's missed Stannery, he's gonna know that he goofed.
He goofed, and so he is now considering opening up the bottom part of the board, which makes a lot of sense. If you notice, there hasn't been a single play made on any of the last 6 rows of the board, which means there's a lot of room to bingo there if you just make 1 or 2 plays to open up that side. It looks like he's first trying Stillane, but he might go back to playing Axel after.
Once again, like, there's so much on the line here. You got to be sure that those words that make sense, like Stillane could be a thing, you got to make sure that those aren't words before making your play. It looks like he's going to play Axel. I think that's a good option here.
Yeah, and it's really hard actually with Cecilia's tiles for her to kind of muck that area up that Eric just created. So it's going to not only be a good play in theory, but in practice this time, it's looking like it's a possibility. And I think nettlers is a word, if I'm not mistaken, which could play even through the T next turn in Bathe.
Mm-hmm.
So he could start clawing back if Cecilia doesn't block that area.
There's still some time. There's definitely some time, but these players are just so good at maintaining leads, especially leads in the 3-digit numbers. It's just so hard to come back. We see,
well, it's only 98 points right now, so it's not quite 3-digit.
Fair enough, Morris. Fair enough. Yeah, we see a suggestion, a word on 6-letter word on Cecilia's rack that doesn't play, unfortunately. But that would be a nice play if it did play. Looks like she's gonna block nettlers.
Yeah, so it looks like she is going the route of playing off for J now instead of playing the B like Quackle suggests. I'm a fan of this, especially given that she has the lead. Makes sense to block a lane, not create more lanes like Fob or Fub would do.
And interestingly, she chooses Jut over Jot. Now, normally one of the rules of thumb in Scrabble is do not keep duplicate letters. We saw she kept NN with bathed, and she had to exchange next turn because she drew 2 more N's and 2 E's. But the U is such a bad tile that oftentimes it's worth it to just get rid of it instead of getting rid of your duplicate O or your duplicate A. I think I might have still played Jot. One of the things to consider, these very small details that these top players are just amazing at considering all the times. One of the things is the Q is still unseen. And one of the ways for Cecilia to lose in this game, she has to be thinking about, she doesn't have to be, but she should be, is if she draws the Q and she doesn't have any spots for it, and she's gotten rid of her U, that might really slow her down.
Yeah, and so it's definitely, those are the sorts of things all the players will be thinking about in this. I guess actually Homo was the first O played, but there are a lot of O's out still though, so it definitely has its risks associated with it too. You can see in our tile pool on the right side of Eric that the O is the most frequent tile left in the bag right now, so she definitely runs some risk keeping both those O's.
Definitely. Looks like, I think this is a situation where the top play recommended by the engine is the best play here. I would say I would go out on a limb for Fen. Just creates a new spot to play a bingo. It scores decently, keeps really nice letters, but unfortunately, Eric only kept one vowel and drew 2 more consonants.
Yeah, it wasn't quite the right draw in the end after, but it's a really sound play and gives him options to put a T or an S down there, or a D if he draws one. So, yeah, but Cecilia still has her firm over 100-point lead now, Josh. I'll give that one to you.
Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't notice.
Yeah, so it's she is up 274 to 172 right now, holding a lot of hefty tiles. Now, often in this situation, I'm guessing Quackle will produce a result that we're going to disagree with because she could do something parallel to GED, but that's just not going to be good for the board for what she wants to do.
It was suggested in chat, and it's just like last game, the play of Hag, if you guys remember that. It's a very risky play, but it might work out for Cecilia. And if it does, it'll be a quick Scrabble death for Mr. Tran over here. But looks like she's opting for something a lot more conservative here with Toph. It scores very well. It keeps scory tiles. It's kind of what she wants to do. As I was saying last game, the vowel and the consonant ratio is important. And if you're ahead by so much, I often look for plays that keep at least one vowel and at least one consonant so I don't get into trouble.
Yeah, I think it does everything she wants to do this turn, and Eric will have a tough time figuring out how to continue his objective of giving him options to claw back from an over 100-point lead while scoring enough to actually make that less than 150. points. So, right, it's a lot easier to come back from a 100-point lead than a 150-point lead. So he needs to score here and continue to make the board friendly for him in the future.
Mm-hmm. He might try something like man-bathed and NIT. We were talking about sunbathe. Unfortunately, man-bathed is not a word, which means woman-bathed.
I do not want to guess that
word.
definition. So,
but I don't know. I mean, it's Eric. He's been trying a lot of stuff. See what he does. I think he's in more serious mode at this point, though. He's just gonna play. I was gonna suggest something like that. It really sucks, but you just gotta keep on keeping on. Try again with the very similar leave to his last play. It looks like this time he drew into something.
Yeah, and he has a hook for Estrone, and Axels could go down next turn. So we'll see if he gets that down. Yeah, and the reason why Josh is saying a play like that kind of sucks is it only scores 10 points. And when you're down by over 100 and don't make that within 100, it's kind of like, I just wish I scored a bit more to make it at least a bit closer game. But Eric might be able to get this bingo down, but he'll still probably need another really big play in order to eke out a win.
Yeah. So back to Cecilia here. She still has the play of bow or bow. We'll see if she does it this time and senses that now there might be enough momentum for her to make such an opening. But once again, she's opting for something a lot. I don't know if she's going to play that, but that's a very interesting idea. Just restricting as much as possible.
Wow, that would be such a cool play. So the reason why we like that play a lot is it doesn't open any lanes and it actually closes the when lane a lot. And so that's just a really advanced kind of board vision play where if your objective is to maintain the lead no matter what and make sure Eric can't score, a really good way to do that is don't give him anything and start closing those existing scoring spots down. So it looks like she's laying down Webb again. I think she probably was looking at that O situation in between, if I had to guess, and think about, is it really worth it to keep both O's still? She goes for it. I love the play.
And I love the idea. I might have played Wheat, W-E-E-T, in the same spot to score a little bit more. But I really love the idea of just restriction and hoping that she can coast on her lead and continue to score enough to maintain her lead even after a bingo. So as we can see, Eric still has some time on the clock. Cecilia has a lot more again. It's a trend last game. She also had a lot more time than Eric. And he's now only down 60 points, so it's still a game, but not if you look at his rack. I'm not sure he's going to be able to recover from that draw of 3 O's, 2 R's.
Yeah, the O's finally hit someone's rack. And so it'd be great if we could see the remaining tiles in the game. If we look, there are 27 tiles unseen. That means there are 7, and this is from the perspective of Cecilia right now. So that means there are 7 of those on Eric's rack and 20 in the bag. So we've played 80% of the game. There are 100 tiles to start with. And so it's this last 20%. We'll see if Eric can somehow find a miraculous way to come back from 60 points.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm seeing the funny thing about that is if Cecilia's played if you've played exactly 80% of the game, those math people out there would realize that Cecilia's final score might be exactly 400 points.
That's true. I
really like Chris Schneider's input. Good thing Eric pulled 3 O's. This is some Scrabble humor because as a result, I mean, Estrone, if it was placed somewhere else on the board, it has a really cool O hook for O Estrone. I mean, it's obviously just still pronounced Estrone, I think, but it's just funny because it's impossible. I guess I shouldn't have tried to explain that. It's just funny to me.
Yeah, well, so one word that Josh used there is hook. If you're new to this scene and hear us say the word hook, all that means is you can plop one letter and exactly one letter either in front of or at the end of a word. And so Estrone takes that O front hook and takes an S back hook, I think. I actually am not sure if it takes an S off the top of my head, but
yeah, it does. When I was a bit younger, people were explaining hooks to me. They're talking about front and back hooks. I had it all backwards because I was imagining for some reason the words as like train cars, and like the front of the train car to me is like is the E. So to me, a front hook would be the last E in Estron, and a back hook would be the first E in it. But I mean, I was the only person that thought that. So quickly, I was like, okay, fine. So he's trying voodoo, which is not a word.
Yeah, there are a lot of spellings of voodoo, but unfortunately, that is not one of them. One other thing we didn't talk about before, since there are still some S's out, is that Wadey does take an S as a back hook. It's not. It's not a word that looks like it takes an S, but it is one of those weird words ending in a Y that can take an S after. So
no, it doesn't.
It doesn't? Oh.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. I was like super impressed.
I thought it did. I am sorry. I am mixing up my S back hooks today. I thought knife might have not. Wadey did. I apologize for that. I don't know what word I'm thinking of, but
it's okay. You still won't have phonied as much as Eric.
That's true. That's true.
When we say phony, we mean play invalid words. And lots of Scrabble jargon to catch up with if you're new to the game. And once again, if you are new to the game, you're looking to improve, we have this link for you. I'm going to post it in chat. It's scrabble.zone/info. And be able to figure out what you want to do. I should probably actually make it a hyperlink. Sorry about that. That looks better.
So Eric exchanged there, which seemed pretty reasonable. It was hard to play down all those O's, and he does not get that rewarded as a result, unfortunately. So if Cecilia can continue extending her lead here, she'll be in great shape to lock up a second game in a row.
Absolutely. Yeah, what do we have left? Can I see what letters are left in the pool? Okay, great. So there's still some time for Eric, I would say. But it's quickly running out, I would say. This isn't obvious either for Cecilia. The best suggestion is only 13 points, and it's DUI and HI, the H in Homa on the left side of the board. I would probably just play that, honestly. There's doesn't look to be anything remarkably good here. The first thing I would look for in these top players, like I said, once you're ahead by such a nice margin, you're always looking to close down parts of the board, or at least places where, 7-letter words are playable. But there doesn't seem to be a very good way to do that. Yeah, the spots that remain are really not that great. The S hook on OE. OE is one of those really useful 2-letter words. It's a gust of wind, I think, off the Faroe Islands. And yeah, so that's, I think, the biggest threat here is if Eric is able to start a word with an S, or maybe even have it in the middle of the word and hook ON and NO. I think that's the biggest threat, but there's really not much left. There's that, and then there's the 7-letter lane on column J. If you can see the letters on top of the board there, the column going down from the J with the Y and weighty, that's the only other spot on the board at the moment.
So she's considering Dewey, or Dewey, I'm not actually sure these pronunciations. One other thing she could have even thought about there is if the OE spot is the most risky, she could have considered playing there, but it is really nice to have EIST also, so I think both options are perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, I like this decision. Yeah, and that's just like bliss when you see something you're worried about and then you draw the letter that you're worried about. It's just really nice. Okay, so he plays Gonia. I don't think that takes any hooks.
Yeah, I do not know off the top of my head. I'm not going to guess hooks anymore after the weighty incident. So, so meanwhile, while you're Cecilia here, so now that she has both S's left, all of a sudden that second to last column, she might actually be more okay playing there just because she has the last 2 tiles that could pluralize a 3-letter word that starts with WE. So she might even go there now. She definitely has a bit of a cushion.
But there isn't really anything you can do there because wet takes an A, and
That's true.
WE takes all sorts of hooks. But that is a good idea. You're always looking to figure out what's left and to see if there's really anything. As we were talking about the OES threat, I mean, now it's completely gone because Eric played there. But you're always looking to see if there's anything you can do to set yourself up and that your opponent can't do anything about, even when you're so far ahead. It's very important. It's a very important tool when you're far behind, but it's also remarkably strong when you're ahead because your opponent is working on getting a 7-letter word. Your opponent doesn't want to have to deal with what you're doing. So actually, I might just play Sift here. For 33 points. Sift and Estrones. That scores a lot of points, and the only problem with that is it opens a big spot for Eric, but he would basically have to play 7 letters, empty the bag, and have an unblockable spot for the rest of his tiles. And emptying the bag is when you draw all the remaining tiles in the bag. And after the play of Sift, which scores 33 points at H12, we were talking about those coordinates. That's the only way Cecilia could lose. So he would have to immediately play a 7-letter or 8-letter word and then come back the next turn.
Yeah, I also realized if anyone can't see the small letters on the sides of the board, since we have been mentioning the coordinates, we have labeled basically kind of like a battleship grid. We have 15 letters in the columns and 15 numbers in the rows. So when we say something like H12, that's just in reference to the part of the board. We have yellow letters and numbers on the side to help you guide. We apologize if that's a bit small, though. And it looks like she's been trying things like GIFs or GIFs. That's one where no one agrees on the pronunciation.
Correct.
So I don't feel bad about
say no more.
Say no more. But she sees, as Josh pointed out before, that Gonia doesn't take a hook, which is actually somewhat relieving to her. Probably she doesn't have to deal with that area in the same way. The other play aside from Sift, which Josh pointed out, that Quackle puts ahead of it on their engine, is a really sneaky play using one of those hooks, a front hook to Natty. Natty is Natty in front. So she could play GIF or GIF, depending on your pronunciation.
See, that's the thing. I mean, you're right back in it, Morris. Like this time you did see a valid hook.
Yeah. So
you're fine, man. You're good. But yeah, that's also an interesting play. So as I mentioned with the play of Sift, the only way for Cecilia to lose is if Eric bingoes twice, because she's ahead by so many points. But actually, if she played, so she's looking at Sift here, but if she played Fiesta to the A in Gonia, that would make it impossible for Eric to bingo twice, because she would be using 5 tiles, and that actually might be the winningest play from my end of things. I'm not entirely sure, but again, looking at what's remaining is a very important thing that these top players are excelling at, and they're always trying to figure out, how do I win this game and how do I lose this game if they're losing.
Yeah, and my guess is if Cecilia does play something like Sift, even though she just took it back, Eric might actually be risky here and play something off of the G in trying to open up a completely different side of the board and having Cecilia be forced to choose what to do at that point. So if she does go with something like Sift or Scythe here, which she now has lied down, it might be in Eric's best interest to just be gutsy and try opening up that top right quadrant, while the bottom right quadrant is also open.
Definitely. I mean, I'm saying all these things that may or may not be true. So if anyone wants to correct my strategizing here, but look, it looks like this is going to be
incredible. So he does make a play like that. Well, he does make a play like that, but Cecilia is holding all consonants. So
Oh,
she can't actually
geez.
use that spot that well that Eric just created. And he picked up the Z
Wow.
too. Oh man, we need to see the tile bag here. I wonder if he's close to any bingos here. That play.
I had to
Man,
check
this is...
oralize. I'm just letting everybody know I had to check oralize, but it's not a word. So her time is also really low. She spent a lot of time on the past few moves.
Oh, she picked up the key blank though, so she might be able to get back what looked like an uncertain point for just a turn ago.
But
So
still, I mean, Eric might have chances. I might have spoken a bit soon. How
yeah,
many letters are
so
left?
yeah, it'd be great to see what the tiles remaining are from Eric's
3. I
perspective
think there
here.
are 3 letters left.
So if we can see the tiles remaining, yeah. So as Josh said, there are 3 letters left. It looks like the 3 letters are CEO. Cecilia's holding blank GLRSTU. So we know personally that if he can make any play with CEO, any play, he needs to make it so C, E, or O is a key tile he draws. Oh, it looks like he's trying oralize.
See, okay, it's not that bad.
No. I'm always surprised that one isn't a word. But I don't know. Is like focalize a word, for instance?
Yeah.
I don't actually. So focalize might be an option for him off of the F in safe.
Oh, that would be superb to just play the R off. And
yeah. So
hope for the C. That would be an incredible idea. It might or might not work out. But in this position, since we're not computers, there's just a lot of things to consider in such little time. And yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what Eric does here because, like we said, there are only 3 tiles left, and the plays that are being considered, like the top 2 plays that score the most points and seem to give him the best chance, are also plays that block parts of the board that Eric might need, and they empty the bag, which gives Cecilia complete information for what Eric has on his rack, and she'll be able to finish the game off.
Well, amazingly enough, so he must be looking for something else. He might be trying to set up his Z right now, which is a cool idea.
Ooh.
I wonder
think
what
he's just going for a huge.
He has focalized. He got it. He picked OC. So we will see if Cecilia blocks that play. I don't think she has a bingo here. If my quick search is right, but this could be a win for Eric if Cecilia doesn't block focalize here. He left 1 tile in the bag, so if Cecilia makes a play here and doesn't block focalize, he will go out next turn. This would be an incredible win. Cecilia doesn't have a lot of time. Oh, and she's not going to block. We'll see if that's enough points.
Well, okay. I mean, she hasn't played yet.
She has 4 seconds left, though. She plays it.
Okay.
With 2 seconds left on our clock.
I don't think it's 119 points. He's
Is
still
it
gonna
enough?
lose. No, he's still gonna lose.
But it will be a 10-point game within 10 points, I think, right?
Oh my god! Look at him shrugging. He's like, "Well, I almost did it." Cecilia's smiling because she knows it's not enough. Oh my god, that's incredible.
What a game! So it was a 7-point win. So even though Cecilia was up by over 130 at points, even into the last turn of the game, Eric nearly came back, but Cecilia had enough of a cushion to give her a 7-point win